I love nothing more than hiking in the autumn. It really is the best. The air has got this crispiness, and when you're going on a long hike, you start to break out into a sweat. But the chill in the air helps keep you cool. And that smell of the leaves, I love it, and the colors. And it all depends, too, on the time that you go. It's just beautiful. And unfortunately, it only lasts a short time. Those leaves change, and then they fall, and it is over. But I also love spooky season. I'm a big fan of Halloween. I have a tradition every year when, or on Halloween, I watch horror movies all day. I mean, if I don't have to work that day, I won't. I have taken that day off just so I could sit there and watch horror movies all day. I just love it. And not only do I love horror movies, as a filmmaker, I have made horror movies, and I plan on making more. So there's just something about it. I just love October, and especially the closer you get to Halloween. So with that said, today I'm going to tell you a spooky story. A true spooky story. It's about how I hear dead people. I hear dead people. When I was 10 years old, there was a TV show called PM Magazine. And PM Magazine would cover entertainment stories and sometimes paranormal stories. I probably said to my mother, "Yeah, ghosts aren't real though." And she turned to me and said, "Actually, they are. I think you're old enough to know." So she brought me and my younger brothers into the dining room. And she pulls out a photo album from her hutch and puts it on the table. And she goes, "I want to show you something." And then she pulls out this photo, and it's a photo of her wedding with her and my father. And they're standing at the altar. And she says, "Do you see it?" And I look, and I'm like, "No, I don't see anything. What am I supposed to look at?" She goes, "The ghost that's in the picture. Don't you see it?" I'm like, "No, I don't see anything." She's like, "Look closer." And I look closer, and I still don't see it. And then she points something out. She goes, "Look at that. Do you see that?" And then I saw it. And it's one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And then it became clear. And there it was. To this day, the creepiest photo I have ever seen of a ghost. This thing has like a skull face. It has like a halo around it. It's actually holding a Bible. It's holding rosary beads. Its hand is the most clear. The hand is solid. And you can see its fingernails, and there's no webbing between its index finger and its thumb. And it appears to be smiling, but there's nothing inside of its head. Like, there's no eyeballs, there's no mouth, it's just holes. And it is creepy. And once people see it, once I show them the photo, they get freaked out. I even had a priest look at that photo, and he was stunned by it. He wanted to actually look further into it, because was it religious? Was it related to religion? Why is this thing holding a Bible and have rosary beads? So I'm going to show you right now this actual photo and point it out. So if you look, right here, you can see that's where the hand is. And just follow here to where the eyes are and the head, and there's the halo. And look at the Bible and the rosary beads. But my mother wasn't done. She had more. She then told me about my great-grandmother, my father's grandmother, and she was the mother of my grandmother. She said she was a nice little old woman, one of the nicest people you would ever meet. She was an absolute sweetheart. She was only like 4'2", really tiny, and she drove this giant car. Like this, I guess this took place in the 70s maybe, or the 60s. So it was a big, giant, enormous car. And she could barely see out of it, and she apparently crashed into everything with it. Mailboxes, houses, cars. So she was living with my grandparents, and she had her own bedroom that was across from theirs. But she didn't really like the dark. So every night she would go and put the hall light on. And my grandfather hated that. Now, he didn't really get along with her. He was not that nice of a guy. So he would yell at her and tell her to keep the light off. And he would go out and turn the light off. And she didn't like that. And she'd come back out, turn the hall light back on. And he would yell, "Stop turning that goddamn light on!" And he'd go out and shut it off. And of course, she'd go back and turn it on. And it would be like this every night. And then she passed away. He thought, freedom. I don't have this old bag in my house anymore. I don't have to deal with her turning that light on and off. The witch is gone. And he kept the light off and went to bed. And a couple of hours later, he notices that the damn hall light's on. So he turns over to my grandmother. He's like, "Why did you turn the hall light on?" And she goes, "I didn't turn the hall light on." He goes, "Yes, you did. I certainly didn't do it." And she goes, "Well, I didn't do that." He goes out, he shuts the light off, gets back to bed. An hour later, he wakes up, and what do you know? The hall light's on again. So he yells at my grandmother again. "Why are you leaving the hall light on? Don't you start being like your mother. She's gone now. We don't need that." He turns it off. It turns back on. He turns it off. It turns back on. And this went on for days and days, to the point where finally he had enough. And he turns to my grandmother and he says, "You go tell your mother to stop turning that light on. Enough is enough. I've had enough. Go have a conversation with her." And therefore my grandmother did. She walked across the hall, opened the door, walked into the room where my great-grandmother used to live, and shut the door behind her. After a while, I think she was in there for maybe an hour, she comes back out, shuts the door, goes back to bed. That hall light never turned on again. Now, she died, my grandmother died in 2010, but never told anybody what she said in that room. Did she actually see her mother? Was there an apparition in there? Or did she simply talk? Did she hear her mother talk to her? Did she get a response? She never would say. She refused to talk about it. But nonetheless, that hall light never turned on again by itself. After that night, I believed in ghosts. But the thing is I always remained skeptical, and I still do. And when I mean skeptical, I'm not skeptical of the paranormal. I'm just skeptical of what people tell me. If someone says, my house is haunted, I'm not going to believe you right off the bat. About 7 years ago or so, I got a job in this warehouse. And this was a very old, dank, creepy warehouse. Not really a nice place. And I walk in there and I ended up getting the job. And on my first day there, I got introduced to my coworkers. And one of the first things I was told is, "Oh, by the way, this warehouse is haunted." And I was like, "What?" "Yeah, this warehouse is haunted." And my thought was, just because it's a creepy old dank warehouse and looks like hell itself, doesn't mean it's actually haunted. And for a while, nothing was really happening. So I didn't really think it was. I just thought it was them making up stories or thinking it was haunted. But I never felt any weird energies there. I never heard anything. I never saw anything. Nothing. Now, one of the reasons why I was hired was because my coworker, who was the warehouse manager, barely put in a full week of work. He would at least take one day off every week. And he also was kind of on the lazy side. We still had to get used to the fact that he just wasn't going to be there all the time. And because he was the warehouse manager, that did cause issues in the workplace. Things weren't getting done. There were things he knew how to do that nobody else knew how to do. So my boss hired me because she eventually wanted to let him go. And not because she didn't like him or respect him, but simply because he just wasn't right for the job anymore. It was a Monday, and I show up to work, and once again, he's not there. And the problem was that he had the keys to unlock the door. My boss would have to be called for her to come in. And it would take her like 25 minutes or so. As I'm walking towards the door, I start thinking I can't believe he's out sick again. That's when I heard a whisper. The whisper was in my head, but the whisper said, "Mike, he's not coming in because he's dead." I just right away was like, "Get out of my head. That is so wrong. That is so wrong. Why would that voice come to me? Why would I hear that? Why? That's wrong. That's just not right." So my boss arrives, she unlocks the door, and she goes, "Yeah, I don't know what happened. He usually leaves a message, and there is no message. It's kind of unusual for him." About 5 minutes later, my boss opens up her office door and says, "Hey, Mike, could you come in here, please?" That felt a little odd. I knew something wasn't right. I sit down, And she says, I guess I just have to say this. Yeah, I just got a hold of his family, and yeah, he died yesterday. I didn't want to tell my boss at that time that I heard that voice. Not only the news that he actually died, but then knowing that this voice told me he did, I was like creeped out. Shocked that he was gone, and shocked by that at the same time. And then the thought comes to my head. Who told me that? Who said that? Was it him? But that wasn't the end of it. Literally 2 months later, my boss and the office manager were off on a business trip, so I was the only one in the warehouse. I was closing up and getting ready to go home. I shut the door, the bay door, lock it, and while I'm locking it, I see something out of the corner of my right eye. It's dark, but it's moving. I stop in my tracks and I turn my head and I look right at it. And what I am seeing is a human-shaped shadow. And it is walking, just like a normal person would, across that wall, takes a turn into the office, and then turns again to go into the adjoining office. And I stood there and watched this thing move with my own 2 eyes, and I couldn't move. I was not afraid. I was not scared. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe that I was actually witnessing this. I have had things happen to me that I have seen, bizarre things, different lights, weird lights, things like that, shadows or whatever, but it's always been out of the corner of my eye. And so I never believed what I was seeing. Unless I could actually see it straight on with my 2 eyes, and I am completely right there in this present moment, then what I saw, the corner of my eye, I would never confirm as being anything. I just wouldn't. But now I was able to confirm it. I actually saw an apparition right there in front of me. At that point, I was like, yep, they're right. This place is haunted. And let me tell you the things that went on in this place after that. The office manager came to work early one day. She was alone. She opens up the warehouse and there is music, like a choir of angels singing. She could hear them singing as clear as day. So she shut the door. She went back outside. She refused to go into the warehouse. And she waited until I came in. And I see her standing out in the park. I'm like, oh, did you forget your key? She's like, no, there's people singing in the warehouse. I'm like, what? Yeah, there's music right now in the warehouse. I can't go in there. I'm like, okay. So I unlocked the door. There was no music. And I'm like, well, let me go check the stereo because maybe I forgot to unplug it. I pointed it out to her and I'm like, it's unplugged. Then we would hear walking on top of the products. Here's the thing. My coworker who passed away would walk on top of the products because it always made me cringe. Because I kept thinking, what if you break the items? You're going to break them. You should be walking on them. And I heard that. I would hear the walking. Everybody else heard it too. It was almost common after he died to hear the sound of walking on the products. So now you cut to a couple years later, and now I am the only employee in the warehouse. My boss was let go when there was a merger. Now my new boss is in another state, so I am the only person working there. And it was in the winter, and there wasn't a lot of work in the winter. What we did was mostly seasonal. So I didn't have anything to do. So I, as a filmmaker, and someone who I also sell sound effects online, I decided to go take the day and just record sound effects in the warehouse. But one of the things I wanted to record was the bay door. So I go ahead and do that. So it was probably like a week later that I finally had a chance to upload all of the audio files into my computer and start cleaning them up. And I'm listening to each one, editing them and everything, and now I get to the garage door recording. And I'm listening to the recording, I'm thinking, oh, this sounds perfect. And then suddenly I hear something. I had chills go right up my spine and every hair on my body stood up because I heard a voice. And the voice said, yo, Mike. Did I just hear a voice call my name? And also at the beginning of the recording, my name is also said. Mike. It is nuts. It is nuts because yes, I believe in the paranormal, but when I actually get evidence of it, it is nuts. And now I freaking hear dead people. Here is that audio recording. Isn't that crazy? But here's the thing. After getting that recording, I actually started to hear dead people in the warehouse. It became common. I heard someone scream. That creeped me out. Now, I didn't go run away. I just stood still for quite a while, and I didn't know what to do because it was so loud, so clear, and right there. But then the other weird things that happened was I would leave at 4 o'clock every day. That was the time I'd go home. And I had no work, so I fell asleep behind my desk. And next thing I know, someone whispers in my ear, "Mike, it's 4 p.m. And I woke up, and I'm like, what? And nobody's there. And then it happened again. I fell asleep at the desk, and then I heard, "Yo, Mike, wake up." I would hear voices in the warehouse, like conversations. I would be in the bathroom, and I thought a truck driver was out there to pick up product, so I quickly rushed out of the bathroom and go out there, and nobody was there. It was crazy. I have a feeling that once you get open to this stuff, like once it starts happening to you, suddenly you become a magnet for it. And then you will see and hear things, and it becomes part of your life. And I will tell you about those stories at another time.
And now, a shameless plug.
It's Mike with another shameless plug. Today's shameless plug is all about the spooky season. If you're looking for something really spooky, something scary, something creepy, something paranormal, something maybe from outer space, check out paranormalaliens.com. Every spooky and scary design that you find here at paranormalaliens.com has been created by me in my mad scientist lab down in my dank, dark basement. And now I'm offering it to you. So check out paranormalaliens.com for something really spooky, perfect for the Halloween season. paranormalaliens.com. Check it out today. And now, back to our video.